Hi everyone, and welcome to a bit of a different video than I usually make. Today I'm going to be talking a lot about the new mage that just came out in KMS called Illium. The reason for that is I think this class looks pretty interesting, and I'm probably going to try it out whenever it comes out. So I wanted to quickly, well, I say quickly, but this is probably going to last a while. Wanted to just talk about my thoughts on the class and go over the skills and whatnot so you guys could get an idea of what it's like. Obviously this information is free for everyone to read. It's on Orange Mushroom. Thank you Max for always providing these great detailed notes of all the KMS updates. So this is just going to be me going through these notes. If you're not interested in that, if you want gameplay or something, then feel free to leave. You have been warned. This video is probably going to be pretty boring for most people, so don't feel the need to stick around. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and get into it. So, class name, Illium, Wings of Brilliance. Like I said, he's a mage. He's a wooden Lef, which is not a new race, but it's the first class we've had from the Lef race. So, that's interesting, I guess. People were expecting a Nova mage. This is like sort of Nova, not really, though. They're both from Grandis, but they're not the same race. It's confusing. You got some backstory. I'm just going to skip the backstory. You can read that if you're interested. There's also some webtoons coming out. I don't know if all of them are already out or if they're coming out incrementally. I know the first one is out, but whatever. This is the job advancement animation. These are the weapons. You can look through those if you want. These are the secondary weapons. When I saw these, I thought maybe you could be able to change, because there's like the black wings as opposed to the typical golden wings. If you see like videos of Illium, he'll have like the wing effect behind him. I didn't know if depending on the secondary you wore, that looked different. I don't think it does though, but that would be really cool if you could get like the black wings and have the black effect. That would be sweet. Emblems, pretty standard. Medals, also pretty standard. Got the names of the medals, you got some quests. Yep, quests, alright. So this is the character creation page, and I believe if you pick either male or female, you're locked into the same face, but obviously the hair is different. Yeah, same face. You can pick the hair color at your whim, whatever you desire. And you have the starting town, Asylum. I believe it's attached to Savage Terminal, which is the starting town of the new Nova Thief that came out recently. I don't know where exactly they intersect, but the starting area actually looks pretty cool. These are just some screenshots of the maps. The backgrounds in particular look really cool. I haven't heard the BGM or anything, so I don't know what it sounds like, but this definitely looks like a cool place to just like chill and hang out. These are some mobs. They're pretty, you know, standard for beginner areas. They go up to level 30 something, whatever. You got some NPCs related to Illium. I keep wanting to say Illumi for some reason, but it's Illium. Anyways, NPCs, NPC names, illustrations for the NPCs. And then we have the actual skills, which are the relevant part of this video. So you have the typical return to shelter, warps you back to hometown, cooldown of 10 minutes. Neat animation, that's about it. You have the link skill, flow of battle. When you move a certain distance, gain a buff for 5 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Each stack increases your damage by 3%. I don't know what the condition, or rather, I don't know how far you have to move to get a stack, but this seems like it would not be very good on most classes, because on most classes you're standing still while you do damage. And 5 seconds isn't very long, so if you wanted to keep this up, you'd have to be moving a lot. It might be good on Illium, because Illium's sort of mobile, but I don't know how good this link skill is overall for most classes. I feel like it probably wouldn't be that good, but who knows. It might be like a really, really lenient requirement on movement, so maybe it's actually great, but I have no idea. Excuse me. And then we have first job skills. So, craft javelin. This skill is going to be your bread and butter most of the time. First job, it deals 100% damage 2 times, and then it bounces between enemies, sort of like reflection. So like it hits one, it bounces to another, etc., etc. So it's a pretty strong mobbing skill in first job. And then you also have Craft Orb, which is like the companion skill. When you use Craft Orb, you gain something called a Bless Mark, which I will talk more about later. And then it deals 50% damage one time on 3 enemies. For 2 seconds after being used, it increases the damage of Javelin by 30%. And then it says here it flies towards the crystal. I'll explain that later, but that's definitely a relevant thing to know about this skill. You have Rio. He's like a summon companion. He flies around and attacks a single enemy, and his damage goes up over time. I don't know how fast he attacks, but I believe once he gets through all of these hits, he then moves to a different target. Or maybe he just resets and keeps attacking the same target if there's only one. Not really sure how it works. But I don't think it takes him 180 seconds to do 40 hits, so he probably cycles through this damage loop a few times when you summon him. You have Crystal Portal. This is teleport, basically. Pretty neat animation for teleport. And then what's very unique about this teleport is if you jump and then you use it, you actually start flying. So Kinesis has a flying skill. It's called like Kinetic Jaunt or something in GMS. It's not very good because it's heavily ping-based. So most of the time when you use it, it's going to end very quickly for some reason. I don't know if that's a bug or if that's just the ping being bad where I am, but I've heard others having the same issue, so hopefully this is different because it would be sweet to just be able to fly around, but I don't know. You have Magic Mastery in first job, which is a little bit weird. Usually it's in second job. You get a little bit less mastery to start. Usually it's 50%. This time it's only 40, but it gets remedied later. It gives you 20% crit rate and absorbs 20% of the damage you take from enemy attacks. It's pretty good. So Bless Marks, these are what you get when you use the orb. You gain it for 10 seconds, and then it stacks up to 3 times. I believe each stack refreshes the 10-second timer. At least I would hope so, otherwise these are really hard to maintain. Each stack gives you attack and magic attack, 2 per stack. So if you have 3, you get 6. And then passively it gives you 10% HP and MP, and also 10% damage. So pretty good passives for first job. Moving on to second job. So this thing is the Ancient Crystal. And this is where that tidbit about the orb above comes back into play. So what the crystal does, it just sits around on the map. And you can use this skill called Crystal Control. When you press this, the crystal warps to like a certain distance in front of you. If you're holding the down arrow, as such, it warps on top of you. And then basically the whole style of Illium is to be hitting the crystal with your other skills to trigger various effects. So the orb, for example, it will always fly towards the crystal no matter which way you cast it or where the crystal is on the map, whatever. And then when it hits the crystal, it does this. So these are called reaction skills. This is destruction. This is domination. When you hit the crystal with certain skills, it triggers these attacks in the area around the crystal. So if you hit it with a javelin, it triggers destruction, which does 360% damage 4 times on 9 enemies in the area. And then it has this thing called a reactivation cooldown. Basically what this means is for 6 seconds after this happens, it can't happen again. But then after 6 seconds are up, you can proc another one. So basically you can do this once every 6 seconds. Same thing with domination, once every 6 seconds. And then also as you hit the crystal with different attacks, it gains charge. So the maximum charge in second job is 30. Every time you hit it with a javelin, you charge for 1, and every time you hit it with an orb, you charge for 2. This charge becomes relevant for things called crystal skills, like this here. So crystal skill Mortal Swing, once you have a charge of 30 or more, you can use this attack, and it will deal 500% damage 10 times on 12 enemies. The unique thing about crystal skills is you can only use them once per charge cycle, which is my name for the loop you go through. So basically, back up here, does it talk about? Right here, okay. So 10 seconds after the crystal is fully charged, the crystal charge is reset to 0. So when you hit the max of 30, you have 10 seconds with which you can use this, and then it will reset to 0. You can only use the crystal skills once every cycle, basically. So, like, if this gets to 30, I can't just spam Mortal Swing in the 10 seconds I have. I can only use it once, and then it'll go back to 0, and I have to get to 30 again before I want to use it again. So it's like loops, basically. I think that's probably fair, because the crystal skills, this one doesn't seem like much, but the later ones are definitely very strong, so I understand why they want to limit you on that. You have Booster, pretty standard. You have Machina, another summon similar to Rio from First Job. Machina actually follows the crystal around, and he deals 250% damage 4 times on 5 enemies in the area. So you can sort of station him somewhere. And then something I thought might be possible, but I don't know if this actually works. It says here, if the crystal moves, Machina will move with it and attack enemies along its path, but its number of hits will be decreased to 1. So if you watch videos of people playing Illium, the crystal moves pretty fast. And if you move it a long distance, Machina like flies over, and he flies very quickly, and he hits enemies in the path between the old position and the new position. What I don't know is if this 5 enemy limit still applies to that attack that happens between him changing positions. If it does not, then I think that might actually be like a strangely viable way to mob, is just moving the crystal around and having Machina attack enemies in the path. Because one hit of 250% damage doesn't sound like much, but his damage gets buffed later, and just the sheer range is like ridiculous. Most maps now have like teleports that move you from one side to the other, from the top to the bottom. So if you kept going to the opposite end of the map and moving the crystal, and he could just hit everything between like both sides of the map one time for however much damage, that's pretty good, especially if you're funded. If you're funded, that could be like a really strong mobbing tool. I don't know if this enemy count still applies though. I can't test that out obviously because I don't have a KMS account. I imagine it probably does, but if it didn't, that would be sweet. Moving on, Divine Shield. This is sort of like Magic Guard, but not really. But basically it is. Basically when you get hit, if you have a Bless Mark, it eats 1 and absorbs 85% of the damage you take. So that's the same ratio that gets cut into mana if you're a regular mage with Magic Guard. But this just absorbs it, so it negates it. It doesn't take it out of your MP or HP, it just reduces the damage you take. I imagine it doesn't work like this, but if it worked on percent HP skills, or attacks rather, that would be ridiculously strong, which is why it probably doesn't do that, but I guess we'll find out. But yeah, basically Magic Guard, you have to keep up Bless Marks. I'm not sure how difficult it is to maintain Bless Marks. Hopefully not that difficult, because otherwise this would be kind of not great. And then we have a Curse Mark. So this is the other kind of mark that Illium has. And basically, Curse Marks, you can, I believe the only skill that actually inflicts them is Domination. So when you hit the crystal with an orb, anything hit by this skill, Domination, receives a Curse Mark. So Curse Marks last 10 seconds, and they decrease an enemy's defense by 4%. And then if a mob has a Curse Mark on them, they will... Sorry, hang on. Illium's attacks will activate an additional hit that deals 20% of that attack's damage. Okay, so it's like a final attack, but the damage of the final attack is based on the damage of the attack that triggered it. So rather than normal final attacks that have like, you know, 150% damage or something, Illium's final attack damage is based on the number of marks and also the damage of the skill that hits the enemy. I don't know if Probots, like the summons, also get that. I assume they do. But these will be more relevant later on not so much in second job, obviously, but curse marks are definitely going to be very influential once you get to fourth job. So third job, we have Crystal Charge Mastery. It increases the maximum crystal charge from 30 to 150, which is a big jump. The number of charges you get for the skills remain the same. Javelin still charges 1, Orb charges 2. Both of the reaction skills get a lot stronger. Destruction goes from whatever it was before, I think it was like 360. It now does 550% damage 4 times, twice. So it got a lot stronger. And then the reactivation cooldown drops down to 4 seconds from 6, so this skill becomes quite good. And again, this happens every time you hit the crystal with a javelin. Domination also gets a bit stronger, does 550% damage 2 times on 12 enemies with reduced reactivation cooldown of 4 seconds. I believe these hitboxes are also larger than the initial versions, but I'm not sure about that. And then this obviously still adds curse marks. Then we have the next crystal skill, which is Glory Wing. This skill is insane. Basically, once you reach a charge of 150, which is the new max, you can use this, and then for 20 seconds, you gain 10% damage, you gain 100% stance. I don't know why the stance is relevant, because when you use this, you can fly everywhere. No limitations, just fly around, do whatever you want for 20 seconds. And then while this is active, Javelin gets buffed to 300% damage 6 times on 5 enemies. And then when it hits an enemy, it explodes, doing another 205% damage 6 times on 5 enemies. So this is ridiculously strong, especially for a third job skill. Obviously, you want to use this as frequently as possible, which is probably why they made the charge requirement 150, and obviously you can only use this once per cycle, so you have to get to 150, you have to use this, you have to get back to 150 if you want to use it again. I don't know how long it takes to charge up 150. It seems like it would take a while because Javelin only charges 1 and Orb only charges 2, but who knows. While you're using this, you can also use Teleport to like dash. That's what this animation is. Like warp across while you're flying. It's pretty cool. This is not affected by buff duration, unfortunately. So what you get is what you see. You only get 20 seconds. But man, is it cool. Alright. Next crystal skill, Harmony Link. This is the second one for third job. This one only requires a 60 charge. And when you use it, it's sort of like a passive. You connect with the crystal's aura 15 times, and every time you connect with it, you gain a bless mark, and you also heal 10% of your maximum HP. So I don't know what the interval is between connections, more or less. I don't know if it's like based on the distance. Probably not. It's probably just a time interval, but I don't know how long it is. And then when you connect, every party member between you and the orb also gets the effect of the link. So you can see here, Illium and all party members between Illium and the crystal will gain a bless mark and have their HP healed. So this is going to be relevant for a couple of skills, well, mainly just one skill later. But otherwise, this is a kind of nice attack buff for party members if they're standing between you and the crystal. So you want to kind of stand behind people, but you know, it's probably not a big deal to min-max that. It is kind of nice passive heal though, especially in bosses that have longer potion cooldowns. Then we have Bless Mark Mastery, so this improves the Bless Mark. It now goes up to 6 instead of the previous 3. They still last 10 seconds, and then each stack from 1 to 3 gives you 2 attack, and then each stack from 4 to 6 gives you 4 attack. So that's a total of 6 plus 12, 18. 18 attack from having maxed. And then passively, this gives Javelin 200% damage, which is quite a lot, but I think this gets negated later, and I'll explain that when we get later. Curse Mark Mastery, so this is the next upgrade to Curse Marks. They now stack up to 3 instead of just 1, and then each stack decreases the enemy's defense by 4% on the first and 3% on the second and third, so that's a total of 10% ignore defense if you have 3. And then Illium's attacks will activate an additional hit that deals 30% of the attack's damage, but this actually can stack up to 3 times based on the number of stacked curse marks. So if you have a 3 stack, then this actually does 90% of the attack's damage. So like if you had a 300% damage javelin, for example, 90% of that is 270% on that final attack. So that's pretty strong. You have left mastery, gives you some HP, some damage, some movement. You have destiny innovation, gives you some int and magic attack, percent magic attack rather. Endless research gives you magic attack, crit damage, and crit rate. This is pretty strong. 30 crit damage. That's more than a lot of classes get. So, finally we have fourth job. So this is where the class gets real, in my opinion. You have crystal charge complete. The first bit of this stays the same. You have the same maximum charge. You get the same from javelin. You get the same from orbs. But then there's also a new skill in fourth job called Longinus. I'm gonna mispronounce that a lot, so I'm probably just gonna call it the spear thing. But it charges 3 if you hit the crystal with it. And then passive effect, when you use craft javelin while using glory wing, you create 3 magic missiles that chase enemies and deal 200% damage. So as if this skill wasn't already ridiculous enough, let's just make it even stronger. Why not? You have craft javelin too, so I think this overwrites the earlier passive damage bonus, and then javelin becomes 300% damage 4 times on 4 enemies. So again, it still bounces between them, sort of like reflection. And then when an enemy is hit, it creates 2 pieces that deal 100% damage. So every time you hit an enemy, it like splits off, and then this continues to bounce around while the splits deal, you know, tiny little 100% damage, whatever. Passive effect, when using glory wing. Here we go. Craft javelin's damage is increased by 50%. So again, glory wing, basically insane. So that's it for javelin 2. We get orb 2. Deal 150% damage 1 time on 5 enemies for 2 seconds. Increases javelin's damage by 40%. And this still adds bless marks and everything. It still moves towards the crystal when you use it, so you don't have to worry about aiming it or anything. And then we have Longinus, which I am just going to start referring to as the spear thing. Thunder Spear, whatever you want to call it. This, like the orb, flies towards the crystal, deals 900% damage 7 times on 10 enemies between you and the crystal, and it has a cooldown of 15 seconds, so this is a pretty strong, short cooldown skill. Then you have Deus, which is the next crystal skill. When you reach a charge of 120 or more, you can summon Deus, and he fuses Rio and Machina, the previous 2 robots, to create like the ultimate robot. Deus also summons up to 5 satellites to track and attack further enemies. So the satellites, which are these things, they work similar to Rio. They have the same damage, and they just pursue a target and deal, you know, they have the 3 stages here, as you can see. And then Deus himself does 500% damage 5 times on up to 10 enemies. I believe Deus just follows you around. I don't believe he has a set, like, you know, Machina stays around the crystal. I believe Deus just follows you. And then passively, he increases Rio's damage by 100%, so by the transitive property, these satellites also get their damage increased by 100%. And he lasts 30 seconds. So pretty strong robot summon. Glory Wing, Mortal Wing Beat. So this is a skill you can only use while you have Glory Wing on. It deals 2000% damage 8 times on 12 enemies. Very strong. And the hitbox is also huge. It's kind of hard to tell from these little GIFs, but it's quite large. You have Glory Wing, Harmony Wing Beat. So this is a passive that is in effect while you're using Glory Wing. And it automatically creates bless marks and curse marks on nearby allies and enemies, which is pretty strong because normally you have to use orb and domination to get that effect. So passive effect, this also increases mortal swings damage by 100%. That was the very first crystal skill from first job, so slight buff there. I'm not sure how often you use that, but I mean, I guess if you're on the cycles, you might as well. Left's Warrior, this is Maple Warrior. It has a cool animation. I really like the effects, like the wings. Looks great. Hero's Will, standard stuff. Fast Charge. So when you use this skill, for 10 seconds, all of your craft skills, so the Javelin, the Orb, and the Thunder Spear thing, will basically charge twice the amount that they originally did. So Javelin will charge 2, Orb will charge 4, and the Spear thing will charge 6. So that lasts 10 seconds, and then it has a cooldown of 120 seconds, so you can build up charge really quickly if you need to for whatever reason. Then we have the final mastery of the Bless Mark. You can now stack up to 10, and each stack from 1 to 3 gives you 2 attack, each stack from 4 to 6 gives you 4, each stack from 7 to 9 gives you 6, and the 10th gives you 10. So this is a little confusing to add up. We have 6, we have 12, so that's 18, plus another 18 is 36, plus 10 is 46. 46 attack and magic attack from having all 10. But I think you probably will rarely have all 10. I think the attack bonus is sort of just like a, not something you want to strive to keep up, but you know, you more or less just want the marks there. Passive effect increases Machina's damage by 100%. That's really good. Machina is a really good mobbing tool, so always good to have a large damage increase there. Curse Mark complete. This is the next mastery for Curse Marks. Create perfect Curse Marks. So they still last 10 seconds, as do the perfect Bless Marks, whatever. And now it's stacked up to 5 instead of 3. Each stack increases the enemy's defense by 4 across the board, so that's a maximum of 20% ignore defense from the marks. And then Illium's attacks will activate an additional hit that deals 40% of the attack's damage. The additional hit's final damage can be increased up to 5 times. So that's 200% of the attack's damage. So say I'm using the spear thing, this thing. It does 900% damage. So the final attack from hitting something with this, if it had 5 curse marks, would be 1800% damage. Now, I don't know what kind of final attacks you guys normally look at or use, but 1800% damage on a final attack is a lot. Like, a lot. So, I think curse marks are like the sleeper, like OP, super strong part of Illium. I think having a final attack that's based on your regular attack's damage and being able to do up to twice that amount is ridiculous. So, oh, something I forgot to mention about the spear. Where'd it go? There it is. If you hit the crystal with the spear, it also triggers a reaction, but it's just the same one as Javelin, so destruction right here. If you hit it with the spear, it just does this. Same thing as Javelin. Probably should have mentioned that earlier. Okay, so curse marks, very strong. Always want to have 5. I believe if you hit something with dominance, well, I know it adds a curse mark. I believe it refreshes the 10-second timer, so it shouldn't be that hard to keep up. At least, I hope not. Crystal's Secret, this is the final mastery. Brings you back up to 70, which is the normal in 4th job, and then you get 30 boss, 25% defense ignore, and also 20% final damage. So this is the only final damage that Illium has. It's not very much, obviously, but I believe Illium has a weapon multiplier. I do not know what it is, though. I'm just assuming that it is not 1 like staves and wands, because that would be too sad, and I would cry. God, I hate stabs. Alright. Hyper skills. These are the passives. So you have some for Javelin, you have some for the Thunder Spear thing, and you have some for Deus. Javelin, you can increase the damage by 20%. You can increase the hits by 1. You can increase the damage to bosses by 20%. Spear thing, you can increase the damage by 20%. You can add a hit, and you can decrease the cooldown by 20%. Deus, you can increase the damage by 20%. You can increase the hits by 1. And you can increase its damage to bosses by 20%. So pretty similar theme here, except for the cooltime reduce on this one. I imagine you don't really want to focus on these too much, because you don't have Deus up very often. You definitely want to max out all the Javelin ones, because that is your, you're using that all the time. And then maybe cooldown reduce bonus attack? I'm not really sure. Probably cooldown reduce, I imagine. But I don't know where you would put your 5th point. Maybe bonus attack here, maybe bonus attack here, probably here. But I could be wrong. I don't know. I'll have to do some testing with that whenever the class comes out. That's a little hard. Like, most classes have pretty straightforward hyper passives that you want to add. This one seems kind of tricky. And then the actual active hyper skills. So Race of God, this is like the normal like epic adventurer thing that you get when you're level 200. But for some reason, Illium gets it when he's level 50. So 60 seconds, 10% damage buff, cooldown 120 seconds. That's pretty standard, but you get it 50 levels early for whatever reason. And then you have Longinus Zone, or Spear Thing Zone, as I'm going to call it. Basically, this hitbox is insanely large and covers most maps by itself. And then you deal 1,500% damage 3 times on 12 enemies, and then that happens 4 times. So that's 12 hits of 1,500% damage, and then while you're using it, you are invincible, which is very nice. It has a 2-minute cooldown. And then Primal Protection. So originally, I thought this skill was like kinda okay, you know, whatever. Then I realized you could give your party members bless marks, and this skill suddenly becomes very, 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 very strong. So for every bless mark that exists on you or your party members, gain invincibility for a certain period of time. You get 1 second of invincibility per bless mark. So if you have 10, and if all 5 of your party members have 10 from using the passive that like just automatically adds bless marks to people, that's 60 seconds of invincibility, which is ridiculous. If you're just by yourself, you can get a maximum of 10 seconds, which is like, okay, you know. 10 seconds of invincibility is pretty good, but it's not like insane or anything. A minute of invincibility is insane. So this has the potential to be very, very, very strong, or just, you know, okay. It has a 3-minute cooldown, you know, that's standard, I guess. Then we have the 5th job skills. So for the 5th job skills, I'm actually going to bust out the notepad in a second just to explain something, but you know, for now, we have Crystal Ignition. This is the first 5th job skill. It's like a hurricane style laser beam, basically. It deals 1,500% damage 3 times on 15 enemies. It lasts for 10 seconds, and it has a 3-minute cooldown. I know from watching a video of someone do like a battle analysis that it hits 4 times per second for a total of 120 hits, 12 hits per second, you know, 4 times 3. So that's pretty strong. And then this is a reaction for that. So this doesn't count as like its own 5th job skill. This kind of just levels up with Crystal Ignition, similar to how Evan's 5th job skills work. So every time you hit the crystal with Ignition here, it creates a spectrum. There's a reactivation cooldown of 1 second, so you can use this. This will proc basically 10 times because this lasts 10 seconds. So if you hit the crystal constantly with this, then you will trigger 10 of these. And then every one of these does 2,000% damage 5 times on 15 enemies. And this hitbox is actually very large, so that's quite strong. But what really makes these ridiculous, and this is where I'm busting out the notepad, so let me bring up OBS, hang on. Window capture, alright, notepad. So you can still see everything, I believe. Alright, so we have Crystal Ignition. I'm just going to go over this one skill at a time. So Crystal Ignition does 1,500% damage 3 times per hit, 4 hits per second, which is a total of 6,000 times 3, 18,000% damage per second. And then Reaction Spectrum does a total of 10 hits, but we're just looking at per second right now. So it triggers once per second, so we only have to worry about 1 attack, which is 2,000% damage times 5. It's 10,000% damage per second. So just looking at it right now, 28,000% damage per second, quite strong. What makes this ridiculous is if we scroll up here, we have curse marks. And these work on everything. So we go back here, and then for every hit, there's 4 per second from Crystal Ignition. So we have the Crystal Ignition damage times 4 times 2, which is the 200% from the max curse mark stack, which is 12,000% damage per second from the final attacks, thanks to curse mark. And then here we get 2,000, which is the damage of the spectrum, times 2, because it's just one line. It's only one line, so there's like a, just for the sake of consistency, there's a times 1 in here, but obviously times 1 doesn't change the result. I'll just put it in there though. Let me make this nice and neat, because I'm, oh my god, there we go. So this would be 4,000% per second. So base, without any curse marks, it does 28,000 per second. So let me write that down. 28,000% per second, no curse marks. With curse marks, it does, that's 30 plus 14, 44,000% damage per second. 5 curse marks. This is a ridiculous amount of damage, especially because this lasts for 10 seconds. So 44,000 times 10 is 440,000% damage every time you use this combination of 5th job skills, if you have max curse marks. That is actually insane. That might be the most burst damage of any like 5th job skill combination. I don't know. It's very strong. Obviously you need to be in an ideal situation. You have to have the curse marks on there and they have to last the entire time. So, you know. One thing I forgot to mention about ignition, you're fully mobile while you're holding this down. You can move left and right, you can jump up and down, and you can also move the crystal while you're using this. So if you're holding this down, you can press your crystal key and it'll go in front of you the distance, and I believe the set distance is actually the length of this. So, you know, no need to worry if you use this and your crystal's in a bad spot. You can totally control wherever you're going with it. So that's the first 5th job skill. Basically, this is sort of like hand in hand with that. And then the second 5th job skill, we have Graham Holder. So it's the final robot. When you summon him, he lasts 25 seconds at max level. And then basically what happens is he will start charging an attack. This is his animation for charging an attack in whatever direction you are relative to him. It's like if you're standing to the right of him, he will start charging facing right. If you are to his left, he will charge facing left. He basically just looks at you the entire time and starts charging. And once he charges, he cannot turn around, so just try and make sure you have him facing where you want. And then if, while he's charging, you if the crystal is charged to 3 or more, so I don't know if this is referring to bless marks or to the crystal. I believe it's to the crystal, but again, I don't know. If you charge the crystal to 3 or more, so I believe that just means like if you charge it 3 from where it was, final damage of Graham Holder is multiplied by 2. So by itself, it does 1,500% damage times 5 on 12 enemies. Then multiplied by 2 is 3,100% damage times 5, which is insane. And basically, his attack, it looks like he's like whacking right here, but what actually happens is he like shoots out a laser that then like flies off this direction. I'm not sure the travel distance, but you can look up videos on YouTube and see him being used, and it goes pretty far. So both Graham Holder and this Ignition Spectrum combo are very strong 5th job skills. I'm really impressed at how much damage they deal, and also how versatile they are, because Spectrum's hitbox is actually really large, so it's very hard to miss things with this. So overall, Illium, I think, is going to be a very strong class, but it's going to come down to one thing, and that is how annoying it is to control. So, my biggest problem when I played Kinesis was that I absolutely hated having to constantly stop and use like all of my debuff skills to make sure that all the debuffs were up so I had my max damage. I hated that. Hated that more than anything. Which is why I quit after like a month and a half. But Illium seems better, but obviously I haven't played it. I think the reason Kinesis was bad was because you had to use a bunch of different skills that didn't do much damage in order to maintain the debuffs. Illium sort of solves that problem because the giant, like, reaction skills are the things that trigger the debuffs, and then from using the orb, which is what gives you the debuffs. Where's the orb? Gosh. Orb. Where you at? Orb. Found it. Okay. So using the orb and then the corresponding reaction are what gives you the bless marks and the curse marks. And domination by itself does an okay amount of damage, and then using orb gives you more damage on javelin in addition to the curse marks. So I think Illium sort of solves that issue a little bit. Obviously I won't know for sure until I actually play the class, which is why I intend to play the class for probably like 2 weeks or so before I really decide on anything. But I think if the class is enjoyable and if the crystal is like easy to move around, which I think it looks like it is, but again, without playing it I can't say for sure. If I enjoy the class a lot, then there's probably a good chance that I'll switch from Evan to Illium. If I don't enjoy the class, then obviously I won't, because I care more about enjoying the class rather than how strong the class is. But it also helps that, Illium is pretty strong. So that's pretty much it for my thoughts on Illium and going over all the skills and everything. I think it looks like it has the potential to be a very fun and very strong class. And what it comes down to is how annoying it is to control and how annoying the crystal is to like manipulate. But if it's smooth and easy, then I think this is going to be a very strong and fun class. So that pretty much concludes everything I had to say. Thank you to everyone who stuck around the entire time. I'm sure this was pretty boring for the majority of people. So if you made it all the way to the end, then congratulations. You have great taste. I'm just kidding. I can't really, claim that, but I'd like to think you have good taste. So thank you. And that'll do it for me, guys. Thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you guys next time.